Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works, and today we're looking at another project from the past. That cool looking model in the thumbnail is a result of combining these two kits. We got AMT's 1972 Chevy Fleetside and the AMT Model King Open Road Camper. Now when I combined these kits, I thought, geez, it's almost like they were made for each other. Well, it turns out they were. Let me explain. This information is taken from www.modelcarsmag.com, and I'll try to put a link in the description below. Apparently, in 1967, AMT created the basic tooling for this kit. And it had the 1967 Chevy grille on it, and it could be built as a stock pickup truck or with alternate parts, a tow truck. Now the details are a little bit hazy, but it seems that AMT and MPC, who were at that time competitors, had some sort of arrangement to share the tooling, because MPC released the kit in 1968. In 1969, both companies released versions of the kit. AMT's losing the tow truck option and gaining a cap for the bed, and MPC's optional tow truck bed morphing into a light fire truck body. Throughout the early 70s, both companies released different versions of this kit, sometimes with Chevy front ends, and sometimes with GMC front ends. Of interest to us is that in 1971, released two kits with this basic truck in them. This is the first of the two MPC kits from 1972, and it's the Racer's Wedge. Of interest is the fact that instead of having dual rear wheels, it actually has a tandem setup. So here's the box top from the original MPC release from 1972. And as you can see, it does have dual tandem wheels on it, but it looks like it uses the stock hubcaps. In this shot, we can see the two sides of the MPC box, and the top gives you a cutaway of the inside of the camper, and all that stuff is really in there. The bottom gives you some more features, and of interest is to the one side on the left there, you can see it shows that they're giving you dual rear wheels, and of course, doing it in the present day, you don't get those dual rear wheels. Now let's fast forward to 1995, and Ertl has long since brought AMT and MPC under its umbrella. And this version here was released by AMT, with only the stock parts in the box. Interestingly, for the 1997 Christmas season, the Loblaws grocery store I worked at brought in a skid drop display of assorted AMT model kits. I don't know, made sense to them. At any rate, even though they were very reasonably priced, they didn't sell very well, and were marked down to $5 after Christmas, and I picked up several kits, including this one. Now let's re-enter this kit. As you see here, Model King persuaded AMT to put both the camper and the Racer's Wedge in the same box about 10 years ago. Now, we'll get to the Racer's Wedge sometime in the future in another video. For the sake of this video, we're just going to be looking at the open road camper. So if we flip it around, we can see that it did indeed come with a complete interior. And curiously though, they did not include any parts to make it easy to put it on the back of a pickup truck. They did give you a basic axle and a set of wheels that I felt were pretty undersized. And then they gave you a very small A-frame to go at the front so that you could make it into a trailer to go behind a car or a truck. Now, I say it's interesting that they didn't include any wheels or anything like that, because in the original release back in 1972, MPC gave you a set of dual wheels to put underneath it when you modified the pickup truck. And quite frankly, to have a camper like this on top of a regular pickup truck chassis without having a set of duals, that'd be pretty unstable. I don't think I'd want to drive it. So at any rate, let's take a look at the completed model. So here is the open road camper as completed by me probably 8 years ago, something like that. And as I said, I was really quite surprised at the time at how well the camper fit onto the truck. And it turns out that, oh, oopsie, It was supposed to go on this truck all along. I'll flip down the patio in a moment. Now I've got the side door open. If I try fooling with it, opening and closing it, it's going to fall off. Mainly because they only give you just the barest little bump at the top and bottom as a hinge. So mine has since worn out. So I try to open and close it as little as possible. In the instructions, they suggest that you leave the roof removable, and that way you can see the interior details. Unfortunately, the fit is not precise enough to allow you to clip it on and off. So I pretty much chickened out and glued mine in place. Now, I'll see if I can give you a view of the engine in a few minutes, but for now, you can see that it has the basic 1972 front end on it. And if you happen to have earlier releases of the pickup truck kit that have the 1969 or 68 detailing in them, you could use those as well. And near the end of the video, I'm also going to show you a couple pictures of a real camper made using this body. So if you might be thinking that MPC created the design of this camper out of their imagination, not so. There really was an open road camper, and if you look at the pictures of the interior, it's identical to what's in here. The only difference that I can see is the one in the pictures that I have has the axle farther back, and it's mounted on a Dodge D300 chassis. Now, a word about the wheels. Of course, neither kit comes with dual wheels. So the wheels you see here, let's go off the tripod, and we'll go down. You can see that, if we focus, that this does in fact have dual wheels on the back. And I had to take a set of mag wheels that were deeply dished and modify them to create those. And I had to create the hubs out of some scrap plastic. Unfortunately, my model isn't really quite correct in that a truck that's set up with dual wheels would have had its front axle replaced with one that's longer. And the reason they would do that is so that they could use the same dished wheels that are the duals on the fronts, and then they'd only have to have one spare tire. Well, I couldn't quite figure out at the time how to make a set of dual wheels that could be inverted the other way, so I just chickened out and left the standards on there. I suppose the owner of this camper might have two spare tires. Under the back of the camper, maybe one for the front and one for the back. Now here's a shot of the back end of the camper. And you can see the porch comes down just like it does on the real camper. Now they give you two little posts to go underneath here, but I figured when it was in the up position, of course, that would look kind of silly. And I wanted to be able to have it flip up and down. So what I did is I put these two pieces of twine in there, and basically to represent, let's say it had some sort of winch arrangement to raise and lower it. And then maybe once they've got it down, they would put the posts in later. At any rate, you can see it has a double patio door in it, and you can see the dinette at the back and the two benches. And we'll see if we can get some interior shots. So let's take a look at the underside. Starting from here forward is the stock floor pan from the kit. And the original 1972 release did, in fact, like I say, come with dual wheels for the back. Although from the picture, it doesn't look like they changed the wheels for the front. Now, if you look carefully, you'll see that my inner tires don't match my outer tires. That's because I was pretty much stuck with having to find another set of tires that I had that were surplus that would match. And since you can't really see them when it's sitting on its wheels, I figured it wasn't a big deal. One thing I think I maybe should have done differently is I should have extended these exhaust pipes. However, I did hollow them out. And really, I suppose the frame needs to come further. Now, this is probably one of AMT's simplest chassis designs in that it's really all one piece. Everything is molded in. So it would have been good to have that as a separate chassis and that sort of thing. Would have made making this kit a little bit easier. However, at the time, that's the way a lot of kits were. They just had a basic floor pan with everything molded in. Now, curious, and I did talk to a few people, that this truck actually had a coil spring suspension with trailing arms. And I guess that was used for some of GM's lighter duty pickup trucks, and then the heavier ones would have leaf springs. So really the underside of this is not correct for something like a camper that would have a dual rear end on it. But you know what? I think it still looks good from the top, and really that's all that's important. Here's a shot of the underside of the engine. Now, this kit did not have a metal axle going all the way through. It's one of the ones that basically uses stub axles. So that's good in that you don't have that protruding into the engine bay. So here's our engine compartment, and I'm just looking at it now, and I'm rather ashamed to say there's no upper rad hose. As well, it could probably use a little bit of a black and gray wash just to make it look a little more realistic. But the lack of an upper rad hose, well, that's just too much to bear. So you know what? Let's make one. So what I've got here is a T-light. And I prefer using these to like a full-size emergency candle or something like that, just because these are almost impossible to flip over. And by the way, this is an old can of latex paint. It's not about to burst into flames on me. So we want to put a nice bend in this. Just scrap piece of styrene. If you've never done this before, worst comes to worst, the thing will burst into flames and you'll end up with a bunch of black streamers coming from the ceiling. There we go. So, it's that easy to bend a piece of styrene. Now I'm going to put another bend in it just so it will meet up with the radiator a little bit better. This would be better if I had that on camera. There we go. So that's basically the angle I want. So there's our rad hose trimmed and glued in place, and when that dries, I'll give it a little coat of German gray, and maybe at some later date I'll weather up the engine compartment. Okay, could still sorely use some weathering, but there is our rad hose glued in place. I feel a lot better now. So here's some down low shots on the turntable. So here's a picture I was able to download off of eBay of somebody's Dodge D300 pickup truck with the actual open road camper, the prototype, on its back. Now, really, the only real difference I can see between this and the model is the positioning of the rear axle. It's quite a bit further back on this than it is on the model. But it's, at first when I saw this picture, I thought maybe somebody had photoshopped it in. Here's the passenger side of that same D300 camper, and all the vents, everything is almost in exactly the same spot. This is a shot of that same camper with its porch in the lowered position. So thanks for joining me for a look at my version of AMT/MPC's open road camper. And until next time, keep on modeling.